welcome to In the Kitchen with Mary Mac. Well, we're coming up on the Thanksgiving holiday in North America. And of course, we've been trying to offer some different kinds of recipes that you might use for your Thanksgiving dinner at home. And circumstances being what they are, a lot of health departments and health secretaries all over the country and even all over the world are limiting where people can go, how much travel they can have, and that sort of thing. So with that in mind, I thought it would be nice to find a dessert recipe that could be for a smaller group of people, even one or two people, actually. And I was thinking about this, and I looked at a bunch of different recipes, and then I kind of altered several recipes and came up with this one. So this I'm calling pumpkin cups. And the way I do them is I bake them in a ramekin, which is a small porcelain or glass dish, like a tiny little casserole dish.
Usually you see soufflés in them.
Oh, yeah. But I actually, like, if you think, oh, ramekins, that sounds really fancy, and do I want to own those? Well, I use mine for a lot of different things. We use them like with dinner if we're having some sort of a little salad, like a fruit salad or something like that. They're kind of handy as a little serving dish. They're also nice for putting different dips in if you're having wings or something like that you dip pizza. You can put your pepper relish in one to dip your pizza crust in, that sort of thing. So they're kind of a little handy. They're also great for when you're baking or cooking and you like to have all of your little spices and additions ready to go in. For separating your ingredients. They're really nice for that because they hold about a cup of whatever, volume. So they're really handy for that kind of thing. And they're also really handy for making these tiny little pumpkin cup desserts. These are sort of like I know everybody's probably familiar with those pumpkin desserts that are kind of almost like a pudding kind of a thing. So they don't have a pie crust and they don't really have a cake bottom or anything like that, because there's flour included into the mixture. So these are on that sort of a line. But when you bake them, they are so moist that they actually kind of collapse in the middle and they leave a little rim of a sort of a cake-like crust. And then the center is nice and soft, very, very much like pumpkin pie. So they were really good, especially with the massive amounts of whipped cream that I put on them, which always helps everything. It's very, very good. So I'm going to give you that recipe. Like I said, you would need ramekins. If you don't have them and you don't want to go out and get something extra, I used 7. I think the mixture, and I kind of was trying to measure it out. I usually would get like 6 if I'm really piling it in, but I got 7. So I would say if you had 6 to 8 ramekins, that's just about right, because you could actually put a little less in and get 8. Or you can actually do this in a large size cupcake pan. So like a normal size cupcake pan, which you probably have, they actually make a slightly larger size cupcake pan, which takes a slightly larger cupcake paper. Or you could do these in the foil cupcake cups, which are freestanding. And you just put them on a baking sheet. They actually have a little paper liner in them, but they are a molded foil cup, and they always have those in the baking section. So there are your 3 options, and that was a lot of talking. Okay, you'll also need shortening if you're using ramekins, or cooking spray if you're using cupcakes, a cupcake pan, or the freestanding cupcake forms, because you'll need to spray the paper liner that goes in so that you can remove it from the pumpkin cup. So they're not really, I don't think they're the best as a cupcake. I like them in the ramekins, but use what you have. You know what I'm saying? Just use what you have. So what you need to do, these whip up really quick. So what you need to do is preheat your oven to 350 degrees. And here are your ingredients. And this will be, first I'm going to give you the dry ingredients, and they'll go in one bowl. And then I'll give you the wet ingredients, and they'll go in another bowl. So you'll need 2 bowls. You need 2/3 of a cup of all-purpose flour, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/8 teaspoon of salt, and 2 teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice, and just get a whisk and mix those together well in their own little bowl. For bowl number 2, your wet ingredients, you will need a 15-ounce can of pumpkin puree. If you can't find the 15-ounce size, you can get I believe it's a 29-ounce size, and then just put half of that into the bowl. It's almost like it's really just about 2 cups. It works out to just about 2 cups of pumpkin. So, okay, put that in your bowl. You need 3/4 of a cup of evaporated milk, which is just about that small, little tiny size of evaporated milk. So if you get the regular size can, it uses about half of that. See what I'm saying here is you could actually double this recipe and make a whole lot of these in another time when you could have a lot of people over. But they keep in the refrigerator really well, so, there's that, because you always have to have leftovers. In addition to the 15-ounce can of pumpkin puree, you need the 3/4 cup of evaporated milk, 3/4 cup of white sugar, 2 large eggs, and you want to beat those well before you add them, and a teaspoon of vanilla. So all those ingredients in your wet bowl, you're going to whisk those together and blend really well. You don't use a mixer on this recipe. This is all done with a whisk, because when you add the dry ingredients to the wet ingredients, you don't want to beat this up a lot. You want to mix it until it is just mixed. What you're going to do is add your dry ingredients to your wet ingredients and blend them with a whisk until they're just blended together. Don't overmix it, just blend it together, okay? And then you're going to divide evenly between your prepared ramekins or your prepared cupcake cups that are lined, or freestanding cupcake liners, foil ones. Oh boy, I'm confusing myself even. Okay, so make sure that you do spray the paper liners, because you'll want to be able to get those off of your little pumpkin cups. And you should use paper liners because you want to be able to get them out of the cupcake pan. However, if you make them without and they're stuck in there, you can just eat them like an advent calendar of little pumpkin cups. Okay, so you're going to put them in the oven for 25 minutes. The ramekins take about 30 minutes. The cupcakes take closer to 25 minutes. So when you put them in the oven, I would set the timer for 25 minutes and keep an eye on them, but don't open the oven door and that sort of thing, because baking powder items are really sensitive to temperature change. So you don't want to be opening the oven door a lot, and you don't want to be banging stuff around. So turn your oven light on if you have one and peek in there. At 25 minutes, when your timer goes off, open the oven up and take a look at them. And if they're not quite done, they'll almost look wet in the middle. So they should be puffed up, slightly rounded, maybe looking a little tiny bit cracked on the top, but the surface will be really uniform looking if they're done. If they're not done, there'll be a little spot in the very middle that looks a little bit shiny and wet. So if you have to add that extra 5 minutes, do that, but don't go longer than 30 minutes. You can also very, very slowly just move the pan a little bit to see if they jiggle. This is how I test a pumpkin pie if it's done. I take the pan and I just move it a little and see if the middle moves at all. And then if it doesn't, if it's setting pretty well, then you can take it out. So if they look good, if they look like they're done and the center isn't shiny looking, take them out of the oven and put them on a cooling rack. I put my ramekins on a baking sheet with a rim around it, which made life so much easier. Take that whole sheet out and set it on your cooling rack and let them cool really well. Now you can eat these warm, okay? I wouldn't eat them hot because when you put your whipped cream on them, it'll just melt. But you can eat these warm, or you can let them cool until they're cool to the touch. And then I would put them in the refrigerator. You can either set the tray in there just individually and let them finish cooling. And then you can either put plastic wrap over your ramekins individually or put them all into a plastic container and store them in the refrigerator until you need these. And these will keep in your refrigerator for like 3 days, 4 days, if they're still there. If you wanted to make them the day before you're going to have your dinner, that might be nice too, because then that's one thing that's out of the way. So you want to make sure that you take your I used Ready whipped cream on mine and just made a little design on the top. And you could even sprinkle a little tiny bit of your pumpkin pie spice on the whipped cream just for serving. And they'll be gorgeous. Oh, and I didn't mention, when you let them cool, they're going to sink in the middle, but that's what they're supposed to do. So I'll have some pictures on my Facebook page and you'll see that. But they're going to come out of the oven nice and puffed up. And then when you set them to cool, the center will sink down. But that's what you're supposed to do. And then that's where you're going to fill with whipped cream, which makes it's really nice. It's like a whipped cream bowl itself. So these are really good and just a nice idea for a very small Thanksgiving gathering. It's better than having a whole pie or buying a whole pie. And it's also something that, you can individually, even if you wanted to make and take them to someone else, very simple to do. Just, make them and put them in a container and take them to someone else who is also remotely celebrating Thanksgiving. So I hope you give them a try. They're very good. And I'll probably go and eat another one after I do this podcast here. Oh, it was really just really good. Really enjoyed them. So I hope you have a very nice holiday season with your families, and I hope that you are doing well. And we're going to keep podcasting and giving you new recipe ideas to make while you're trying to avoid going out. So just keep listening, and we'll keep sharing ideas.
And make sure to check us out online on Facebook and Instagram at Mary Mac Bakehouse and on our website, marymacpodcast.com.
Thanks a lot for listening if you did, and if you didn't, too bad for you.